Well, at this particular case, I asked the question, I said, why did you want the bill? Even though I changed its size, its shape, and its appearance. And in unison, the crowd said, because it's valuable for what it is. Precisely. I said, human beings are valuable for the same reason. Humans are valuable for what they are, not because of some acquired property like consciousness or self-awareness or the ability to sense pain or make conversation. In fact, I said to the audience, there's only 4 differences between the embryo you once were and the students you are today. Only 4 differences. Size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency. And none of those are good reasons for saying you had no value as an embryo, but you have value as a student. And I said to the students there, I said, think of the acronym SLED. This is a very helpful acronym developed by Stephen Schwartz that helps us catalog the 4 differences between the embryos we once were and the students we are today. None of these 4 differences are relevant, such that we can say you had no rights then, but you do today. Let's look at them. Well, we walked through it. Size, there's your S. It's true, embryos are smaller than students. They're smaller than newborns. But since when does one's body size determine the rights that people have? Men are generally larger than women. Should we advance the principle that men deserve more respect and more rights than women? Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball player for the Los Angeles Lakers, is larger than someone like Hillary Clinton. But does it follow that he is more valuable simply because he's larger? Clearly it's not. Okay, some of you are laughing. He may be more human, but his body size is not the issue. There are cynics in every audience, I'm learning. Clearly it's not less a crime to harm a small child than it is a larger one. What about level of development? Is it true you were less developed as a fetus? Yes. But you know what? 4-year-old girls are less developed than 14-year-old girls. Does it follow the 4-year-old girl deserves less respect simply because, for example, her reproductive system isn't even functioning yet? I said to these students, I said, you are less developed than your parents. You are less developed than your parents physically, and you're less developed than your parents intellectually, which I knew came as a shock to many of them. But the fact is, they're not going to reach their intellectual peaks till their mid-40s. Does it follow they are less valuable as human beings than their parents simply because their level of development does not match their parents? Then we went to environment. We looked at size, level of development, environment. I said, it's true. The fetus is in a different location than you are today. But since when does where you are have any bearing on who you are? When you walked from that hallway, I said to the students, into this auditorium, did you change who you were? You changed location. Did a new person pop into existence? What about when you rolled over in bed last night? You changed location. Did you stop being you? If not, how does an 8-inch journey down the birth canal suddenly transform a non-human tissue blob into something we ought to value and respect? How does a journey of 8 inches bring about that dynamic change? You see, that's the question that's never answered. People love to make all kinds of assertions as to why the unborn aren't human, but they never tell us why those assertions matter. I could just as easily assert that 41-year-old lawyers are not human beings and get a large part of the population to agree with me. Does it follow, though, that I've made a good case? No. Size, level of development, environment, where you are has no bearing on who you are. And finally, degree of dependency. I said if our ability to live independent of anyone or anything is what makes us valuable, we've got all kinds of counterexamples to deal with. For example, Life magazine had a cover story a number of years ago about conjoined twins, 2 girls that have 2 heads, but they're joined in one body trunk. 1 set of legs, 1 set of arms, but coming up from the upper chest area, there are 2 heads, and these 2 girls are conjoined. They will always be that way. And the question is, if our ability to live independent of anyone else is what gives us value, neither one of those girls has a right to life because they each depend on each other for survival. You see, there's only 4 differences: size, level of development, environment, degree of dependency. None of those are good reasons for saying you had no rights as an embryo, but you do have rights today as a student. And that leads me to my final point. In light of what we now know, we know how to answer the question, what is the unborn? The unborn are distinct, living, and whole human beings. That's the scientific fact of the matter. We know philosophically that there's no relevant difference between the embryos we once were and the students we are today. So what is our duty in light of this? What is our duty? At the University of Illinois, 5 years ago, I was scheduled to debate a woman by the name of Eileen McDonough. Eileen McDonough is here in Massachusetts teaching at another university. Here's her argument. Pro-lifers are correct that the fetus is human. However, just as a woman has a right to use deadly force against a rapist who invades her body without consent, so she may use deadly force against a fetus who invades her body without consent, and you, the taxpayer, have a moral obligation to fund that act of self-defense on her behalf. And men and women, that same week that she was scheduled to show up and debate me on that topic at the University of Illinois, by the way, that debate was canceled by local abortion advocates the day of the event. That same week, however, there was a couple sentenced here on the East Coast. Their names? Brian Peterson and Amy Grossberg. What did they do? They were high school sweethearts, and when she gave birth to their infant son in a hotel room, they crushed his head and threw his lifeless body into a dumpster, and they got 2 years jail time. That's it. And they got out early for good behavior. You know what's happening, men and women? We are losing our sense of outrage. We are losing our sense of outrage. Because not long after that couple was sentenced to 2 years, a man in Wisconsin was convicted of killing 10 cats, and he got 12 years hard time. Do we value our pets more than we value human infants? Yes, we do. And as we're here today, in Wichita, Kansas, right now, there's an abortionist by the name of George Tiller who kills unborn humans in the 8th and 9th months of pregnancy for only mildly disabling defects, and he raises the issue with impunity on the internet. And why are the good people of Wichita allowing Dr. Tiller to do this? It's because he's not killing kittens. How bad do we want to win this fight? At the end of Schindler's List, there's a scene I'll never forget. You've seen it, many of you. Oskar Schindler has devoted his life to rescuing Jews from the death camps. At the end of the movie, he is saying goodbye to all the people that he has ransomed. He would go into the death camps, buy people scheduled to be executed, and employ them in his ammunitions factory. And at the end of the movie, the war has ended, and Schindler is saying goodbye to those that he has rescued. And he turns to leave the building where all the people are expressing their gratitude. He walks out the door and he makes eye contact with his car. And he says, "My car? I kept my car?" His associate is like, "Oscar, what's the big deal? Of course, it's your car." He said, "No, you don't understand. I kept my car. I could have sold that car and bought another 10 people. I didn't do enough." He then looks at his lapel on his jacket, sees a pen there, rips it off, stares at it and says, "I kept this pen. I could have sold it and bought another 2. And the movie ends with Oskar Schindler weeping behind his automobile saying, "I didn't do enough." And I leave you with a question, men and women. Are we as Christians taking our Holocaust as seriously as Oskar Schindler took his? Are we players in the bioethical debates that are going on in our culture right now that are redefining the very nature of human beings? A couple of practical points you may consider. First, at Stand to Reason, we publish training material. It's free. It's called Solid Ground. It's a bi-monthly newsletter. If you'd like to get that, see me. I'll give you a card you can fill out, and you can leave that with us, and we will give that to you free of charge for 1 year. If you would like copies of my book, Pro-Life 101, which was featured on Focus on the Family, you're welcome to get that. We have some copies up here. I believe they're $7, no tax, no need for you to pay Arnold for tax here in Massachusetts. Thirdly, I invite you to go to our website at str.org. At str.org, you will find hundreds of free commentaries that you can download to equip yourself as an ambassador who can graciously argue for a biblical worldview on a wide variety of issues. I hope you'll take advantage of that. And finally,